Towering mountains, majestic truss girder bridges, and massive viaducts often steal the show on a model railroad like mine. But what really adds to the realism of a miniature world is the addition of hundreds of minor details that augment the entire pike. In this video, I'll show you an easy way to produce multiple industrial pallets at a time for use around your industrial buildings. The approach is simple and inexpensive, and the pallets add a strong element to any industrial scene. We'll use a scrap of sheetrock or ceiling tile as a work surface. Draw two lines 1/2 inch apart on a piece of paper and place it on the work surface. Cover the paper with a piece of wax paper and use push pins to hold everything in place. We'll cut 3 pieces of 1/16 by 1/16 basswood, about 7 inches long. Place the first piece inside the line away from you and use push pins to hold it in place. We'll be working within these lines because the overall width of the pallet is going to be 1/2 inch. Now place the second piece inside the line near you and use push pins to hold it in place. The width of the pallet will be 1/2 inch. Now slide the third piece of basswood underneath the push pins and center it between the other 2 pieces that you previously laid down. We're going to do this by eye. We'll use 2 more push pins at the midpoints of the outer basswood pieces to keep them aligned. This will prevent them from bowing out. We'll use 1/32 by 1/2 inch balsa wood for the next step. You can cut this out of a larger sheet of balsa wood. We'll cut 6 pieces, each about 5/8 to 3/4 of an inch long. You can use a diagonal cutter or scissor for this. We'll apply glue to the top of the 3 strips at the right end and place a first piece of balsa on top. You want to keep it square with those runners. If need be, you can adjust the positioning of the center strip while you get this first piece on. That piece and the glue will then hold everything in place. We'll continue along the strips, leaving at least a 1/4 inch space between each pallet top. This will give us room to cut apart the pallets at a later step. Remember to keep the pallet top square with the basswood strips. After you place them, you can adjust them if necessary before the glue sets. Work your way down the run until you have installed all of the pallet tops. I'm going to get 7 pallets out of this run. That's a good number. You don't want to run for too long a length because then you run into problems with the strips of basswood bowing out. Let the glue dry for about 2 hours and then remove the push pins. Now we're going to carefully remove the assembly from the wax paper and place it upside down on the wax paper. We'll now use balsa strips 1/32 by 1/8 as the bottom runners. You can cut these from wider 1/32 thick stock. We'll cut the runner pieces about 3/4 of an inch long. This does not have to be exact. We'll use 2 push pins to hold the assembly down for the next step. We'll spread glue on the top of the 3 basswood pieces at one end and then press a runner on top, aligning it with the edge of the first pallet. We'll press a runner on top aligned with the other edge of that first pallet, and then press a runner on top centered between the 2 edge runners. You can adjust the positioning before the glue sets. You can use a ruler or piece of wood to press the top of the assembly carefully. That sets those glue joints. Now repeat this for each pallet along the line. I've placed a penny in this scene so you can see how small these items are that we're working with. Just to give you an idea, using an assembly like this, you're working on something big enough that you can push down with push pins and yet have room to work on the individual small pieces. This is a great technique to use whenever you're making miniature items like this. You'll now have an assembly that looks like this. Let the glue dry for a while and then remove the push pins. Now we'll use a sharp diagonal cutter to separate each pallet. You can see why we left some space between the pallets so that we could get the cutter in. Now we'll use a small miter box and razor saw to carefully cut off excess wood on each pallet. Keep your fingers away from the saw blade. The final pallet dimension should be 1/2 inch by 5/8 of an inch. This approximates very closely a standard 44 by 56 pallet used in industrial settings. Place a piece of sandpaper down, about 100 grit is good, and use it to rub the edges of each pallet to finish off the sides of the pallet. If you've overcut slightly, this will also allow you to size the pallet exactly to your 1/2 inch by 5/8 of an inch. For added realism, you can also sand the top and bottom of the pallet slightly to reduce the wood thickness. You'll now have a pallet ready for use. We can use a simple fixture if you want to add more detail to the top pallet surface. There are just a few blocks of wood glued to a larger block of wood that holds the tiny pallet in place while you're using a razor saw. For a closed surface, use the razor saw to scribe thin fissures in the wood. Remember to keep the saw away from your fingers. This will give you a closed pattern top pallet surface. Now, quite often when pallets are used in industry to save on wood costs, the top surface of the pallet will be what we call an open construction. If you use a hacksaw blade to create the grooves, the thicker hacksaw blade makes larger gaps. The final pallet is now ready for use.